Abba and Stevie got into a heated debate over Charlie Kirk.
And so that's why these school lunches happen, so that kids who go to school get a meal. But people like Charlie Kirk, and then you did the same thing, or like, oh, your parents take care of it. That's fucking stupid.
I honestly feel like Abba cleared Stevie in the debate. Abba came with facts, humanity, and genuinely trying to understand Stevie's point of view. While it seemed like Stevie came into the debate as a brick wall, all the way dug in on his point of view no matter what.
I would just say, labeling people evil.
I don't consider them people. If something bad happens to you because you can spit on Kirk's grave, they better get back from it before it's too late. You fuck around and find out.
He refused to admit when he was wrong or acknowledge any facts.
Which one is higher, the amount of abortions in America or the amount of starving children in America?
The amount of starving kids in America.
Oh, that's cap.
That's cap? Did you Google it? Did you Google it?
I don't need to Google it.
You don't need facts.
And he just sounded like an unapologetically ignorant Charlie Kirk fanboy. Since then, they both made videos responding to the debate. And where it feels like Abba again was genuine in how he views the debate, where he even pointed out things that he did wrong or could have done better, Stevie just comes off as ignorant as ever. Dug in even deeper on his narratives and point of view throughout the debate.
Right. When he posed the question to me, I said I wouldn't be against the government if that passed, right? It is what it is. But I'm not going to demonize Kirk for having this stance, and I understand Kirk's perspective, bro. But he just running with the, I guess, the negative shit that, I don't know, this must have got to him.
And he just sounds ridiculous to me. But I'm Jew, welcome to the channel. Please like and share the video. Don't forget to sub. Now, let's get into
Stevie
it.
Knight from Night Talk. He reached out to me to have a discussion after he covered our Kirk video a while back. There's like two parts that really threw me off.
There should be free school lunch for all children.
No.
Why?
Of course not. Because parents should feed their kids, not the government.
What if they can't?
I covered this whole debate in another video. I still feel like two of the most egregious parts of this debate is Stevie defended Charlie Kirk, who said he will force his 10-year-old daughter to have a baby if she was raped, which is just crazy to even say. And the other thing was Stevie defending Charlie being against school programs feeding kids, which I just feel like is diabolical in this society. There are so many families out there with so many different problems, so many different home situations. And for kids in need, if they can get breakfast and lunch at school, they should, by all means. Him dying on the hill defending those two things came off really inhumane to me.
Go get a job.
A child? You
No,
want child?
the parents should go get the job. You are a temp, dude. Don't give me this stuff. First of all, this is really...
You want children to eat?
Of course I do. Show me a single child in America going hungry. Doesn't exist. It does not exist. We have a child obesity problem.
So I'm like, if you just Google it, what he said is a blatant lie.
It says in the U.S., around 13 to 14 million children experienced food insecurity in recent years, with 1 in 5 children lacking consistent access to enough food. This condition, known as food insecurity.
Getting hung up on the word starving is weird. We all know what was being talked about in that debate. It's kids that do not have food at home. So starving to death, no, that's probably not the case, but definitely being hungry, being malnutrition, not being able to focus in school, being poor, coming from poor neighborhoods, and getting their best meals at school absolutely exists. So if Stevie is about to go on a tangent or make this video about the difference between starving and food insecurity, I just feel like it's a distraction from the debate at hand. The simple fact is I think there should be programs at school to feed kids. And society is not better by saving that money from that program and using it on other things.
Switching words out now, man. Food insecurity is entirely different than starving. That was the question posed in that debate with Kirk. But yeah, it says food insecurity, bro. It doesn't say people starving.
I really don't think it makes a difference between starving and food insecurity. If there are hungry kids that can be fed at schools, they should be. I feel like this whole video is about to be like this. Stevie nitpicking things to try to justify his argument. Even if it's not a starving problem in America, there is still hungry kids in America from troubled backgrounds or households.
About 13 to 14 million children in the U.S. live in food insecure households in 2023.
Food insecurity is people that do not have consistent food or meals at home. So no, kids in the US aren't living in a third world country, but we also can't act like poverty or parents being on drugs or not being able to afford food is not a problem.
Most official counts use the term food insecure, not the clinical word starving. Food insecurity means a household sometimes lacked enough money or resources or other resources for adequate food. It ranges from worrying about running out of food to skipping meals.
So I still feel like Stevie is going to hang on the word starvation and make that the basis of his argument. But we can just switch out starvation and food insecurity for child hunger. How about that? There is an issue of child hunger in America of 14 million kids. Should those kids not receive school lunches? Simple as that. That's the argument. I think they should. Alba agreed that they should. Stevie and Charlie Kirk were against school lunches feeding hungry kids.
Not getting, the nutritious meals, bodies require. It's another conversation. I don't know how familiar y'all are with the actual food that these public schools give children at the cafeteria, bro. It ain't the highest of quality.
The cope is crazy. Leave it up to Stevie and Charlie Kirk. They would rather kids go hungry or find their own resources to get food than have school lunches, which he's now arguing aren't the most nutritious, so they shouldn't get them anyway.
But what he said is a blatant lie. But the smugness with which he said that stuff, he's like, well, the parents should pay it. Well, we all know there's bad parents out there. We all know there's like parents who neglect their kids, parents who got on drugs, whatever it could be.
So I didn't say this in my first video, but when I was in the 8th and 9th grade, my mother got really, really sick. I lived with my mother growing up, and I didn't have food in my house at all. The times I would eat is when I was at school in the morning for breakfast and lunch. And if I was lucky, one of those nights, my sister would bring me food from a restaurant that she was working at, but she didn't live with me. So she would just drop off food and keep it moving. So as far as hungry kids in America, that's always been a thing as far back as I can remember. I just feel like this is such a stupid, selfish, greed-driven argument. As much money as the federal government spend on things that do not help Americans, the one thing that you're arguing to take away is lunches that help support kids. That's crazy to me.
And Stevie was like aggressively defending this stance. Go get food stamps. You can get food at churches. There's no reason to starve. Do you remember that?
Yeah, there's no reason to starve in America. It's like 1% of households.
What I say, starve. This is food insecurity. Starving and food insecurity are entirely two different things. You saw the stat. It says starvation is extremely uncommon, extremely rare in America, but they came up with a new definition labeled food insecurity. You may not have adequate food available. You may skip meals. You're still eating. You're not starving. That's a different problem, man.
It's not a different problem. We're talking about hungry children. If he's saying kids aren't dying in the street, malnutrition from starvation, cool, Stevie got it. I feel like the basis of the argument is same, and he's actually the one moving the goalposts. Do we want hungry kids in this society not being able to eat at school? Yes or no? That's really the argument.
Removing the goalposts. I wish we could have gotten this conversation during the debate and not trying to do this, after the fact shit.
This man refused to even look at facts. He was the one that didn't want to get into a factual conversation or look up any statistics.
Technically a hunger issue, bro, but people are not starving to death in America, bro. Motherfuckers are fat as hell.
But I remember just it throwing me off because I'm like, what possesses an adult to look like a 7-year-old? And like I said, there's 14 million kids suffer from food scarcity.
Every time he says that word, it throws me off. Scarcity. Scarcity, food scarcity, I think is the way to say it. But I was Canadian, so it might be different.
That means they don't know where they're going to get their next meal. I went to school with niggas like that. Y'all didn't go to school with nobody who just sometimes they would show up and they didn't have a lunch and the teacher would sometimes have to fill in if they would. But I remember some lunches.
I gotta say this again, bro. You clearly saw me state that there's no starvation problem in America. I'm thinking of the likes of famine. You know what I mean? Skinny extremities, popped out bellies, like really starving. People in America do not know what starving feels like.
People are like, oh, well, what's wrong with skipping a meal? When you're in development, it's bad. It stunts their growth. Their academic scores are lower on average as well.
It is hard to believe, but a government report out tonight says more than 17 million American children don't know where their next meal is coming from. Many count on school food programs. But what happens now that school is out?
And then afterwards, Steve's like, well,
if homeless are hungry, they can go get some fucking food, dog. Food stamps, bro.
The homeless don't go hungry, bro. They can go get a meal if they want to get a meal.
You're comparing children to homeless. Have you not been a child before? Do you think kids know where to
call parties that do this for a living to find children the resources that they need.
I said it in my original video, but putting that responsibility on teachers that are underpaid, overworked, have classes with 30 plus kids in them, going in and out of class, 2 different classes, is so irresponsible and unfair. You're saying you would rather charge teachers with the responsibility of seeing a kid that doesn't have food and then finding the correct resources to get them food instead of just having school breakfasts and lunches is insane.
Like teachers do this all the time. They'll see a child that may be neglected and they'll make the calls or alert people to, intervene.
You want to call child services? You want to put them in foster care?
It may be better than having the shooty ass parents.
Have you looked into foster care, Stevie? You want the teacher to wait till the kid's like emaciated and clearly spins? You know what I mean? It's
what I'm saying. I was like, okay, this.
How am I saying we're waiting for the kids to be emaciated? Teachers are aware of, good teachers are aware of their students' conditions, man. And if they notice something off.
What does a child that's hungry look like? What if they're not a very vocal person? What if they're not outgoing? What if they're introverted? What if they are just quiet in the classroom with their head down? What if they go to lunch and just sit next to another kid with food? Like, there are so many factors that a teacher would have to pick up on to notice this is even a problem. And the fact that he can't just admit that it would be easier and better if there were school lunches for kids is really dumb to me.
At the home, they're going to make calls necessary to rectify the situation. They see a child that may look like they're hungry, you know what I mean? They're eating super aggressive at the cafeteria, or maybe they're, going through other people's food or whatnot. Like, teachers are able to observe. We're being nitpicky. The beginning of this conversation, maybe I brought it up. Oh, he brought it up. He said, how was Kirk, the same person that is, pro-life, anti-abortion, so inconsiderate of the children that are suffering from, I don't know if it was food insecurity or food uncertainty, whatever label they created for that.
This man's going to take forever to say it. Abba's point was basically, y'all want to force people to have kids because you are anti-abortion, but then you don't want to provide resources for people that might be struggling once they have kids, or provide resources to those kids who might have struggling parents. So it's really callous in that aspect. Like, you want to force people to have kids and then be like, fuck those kids after they're born, which I think was a really good point that Abba made.
I posed the question. I said, well, what do you think's worse? The amount of abortions in America or the kids starving?
He didn't say what was worse. Stevie said, what was there more of, abortions per year or hungry kids? And Abba, without flinching, said there are way more hungry kids in America than abortions. And Stevie said, cap. And Abba said, did you look it up? And Stevie said, I don't need to look it up. Again, Stevie didn't want facts. He came into this debate just to prove a point, and the facts didn't matter.
I'll provide that clip so y'all can see when I pose that question. I haven't even looked up the stats. Just know, literally to the sense of starvation. Man, you saw ChatGPT said starving is almost non-existent in America, bro.
Do you guys even Google this stuff? Do you guys even look into it? But you speak confidently against this stuff that's hurting hundreds and thousands of kids. And I'm like, I don't get it.
Which one is higher, the amount of abortions in America or the amount of starving children in America?
The amount of starving kids in America.
Oh, that's cap.
That's cap? Did you Google it?
I don't
Did you Google it?
I don't need to Google it, but...
You don't need facts. But you know what? Facts don't care about how you feel about it. I need you to Google it.
Okay. Well, if we're pushing the goalposts and saying children that are not getting their meals or don't know where their next meal is coming from, that's another conversation to be had. I clearly kept repeating starving.
This is clearly going to be his whole debate. He can hang his hat on the fact that he used the word starving instead of hungry kids.
We don't know what starving is, man. But
Americans don't know the definition of starvation based on like third world country uses. But they do know hungry. They do know malnutrition. They do know missing meals. They do know not having enough food to feed a family.
I see what he's doing here. He's playing semantics and moving the goalpost with this conversation, bro.
You're playing semantics.
You think the kid is going to go out, oh, yeah, you know what, my lunch break, let me go to this food bank real quick. It's okay to be wrong and say, like, you know what, hey, you're right.
And then afterwards, it kept getting colder and colder. He's like, all these EBT stamps, you get food stamps. I'm like, you want a 10-year-old to get food stamps? Like, y'all know. And then it kept going. And at one point, he just said, well, listen, man, it is what it is.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and the world's not perfect, dog. It's not utopia, bro. So it's like, and then I'm a capitalist, dog. I'm not in support of the government coming out taking care of everything. I know it's a problem. I never said what I want to do about it. I could care less. So like, it is what it is, dog. This life. Life is fucking hard, dog. And some children are born in fucked up circumstances, bro. It is what it is.
If you talk like that about kids not having access to food, is it any wonder why people think you guys are monsters?
Bro, here we go, bro. He taking me out of context again. See, Abba ain't shit. He ain't shit, bro. I thought he was shit, but he ain't shit.
I hate that defense that conservatives use. It's always taken out of context. You say what you're saying just because there's some background information doesn't change the context of the clip. If you say hungry kids is a problem but shit happens, then that's what that means. The additional context or what you were thinking in your head doesn't matter because that's what you said out of your mouth. And that was exactly Stevie's sentiment. Life is hard. Shit happens.
This whole conversation was about Kirk and how he demonizes Kirk, right? When he posed the question to me, I said I wouldn't be against the government if that passed, right? It is what it is. But I'm not going to demonize Kirk for having this stance, and I understand Kirk's perspective.
Throughout this debate, it felt like Stevie didn't have a real opinion or principles or anything to stand on his own. Because when the conversation with abortion came up, he sided with Charlie Kirk. When the conversation with hungry kids in America came up, he sided with Charlie Kirk. Even though he admitted that he was not anti-abortion and really didn't care if the government did step in to help people. It seemed like the whole debate, he had no conviction on his own, and he just went with whatever Charlie Kirk believed.
We pay so much in tax dollars, and most of it goes to the military to do funding wars overseas. I don't think it's so crazy to say, hey, man, take 1% of that budget and make sure these kids don't go hungry. Take another 1% of that budget and take care of veterans. But, you know, I
wouldn't disagree with you with that, but I don't disagree with Kirk either. I mean, I don't think he should be painted as a demon for having that viewpoint.
I mean, I think it's pretty demonic to not want kids to have meals personally.
He never said he didn't want kids to have meals.
We have churches, we have food shelters, we have billions, and it does not exist. We have a child obesity problem, not a child starvation problem in this country. That 50% of our kids are obese or overweight. There's not a single kid in America that has died of starvation in the last 10 years. Show me that kid. Show me that. This is a propaganda thing from the Democrat Party. Our kids are so overweight, they have type 2 diabetes by the age of 8. So the number one problem for kids right now is that they're not moving enough and they're eating too much, not that there's child starvation. Instead, let's get back to a time where you say, hey, parents feed your kids, churches feed your kids, communities feed your kids, not big daddy government coming in and doing what the families do. With that, I say thank you guys so much and have a great day.
And I'm going to reiterate, there's government programs that literally focus on this, feeding the hungry, right? And I don't know what is available for children or whatnot.
How is a child going to get access to those programs? Getting access to all of those government programs have to be initiated by parents. And national school lunch programs, school breakfast programs. That's what they're advocating against.
Even at this point, right, we're semantics, like moving the goalposts. I was talking about children starving.
I don't understand what's Christian about that either. We have kids that are suffering. You guys are like super anti-abortion, pro-life. You guys want to preserve. Then these kids come out and there's like this smug attitude of like,
I'm pro-life. I'm pro-life. But if you're hungry, man, shit happens.
The comparison between abortions and food insecurity, it's a stupid argument.
It's a stupid argument that he initiated. He brought it up. I think that was a dumb comparison. Just like he brought up car accidents later in the argument as a comparison to hungry kids. They're all stupid parallels in arguments that he initiated.
What are we talking about? Why are we comparing killed babies to babies that are alive? Nobody in America is dying from starvation.
To me, I understand that the fact that he died on camera makes it much more graphic, much more in your face. But at the end of the day, murder is murder.
People were able to see that video until the end of time now, right? They're able to see that man go out the way that he did, and knowing up until this, I can't compare someone else that had the amount of influence Kirk had. You know what I mean? If he hadn't been murdered in front of everyone at once, your analogy, your comparison will be fair, man, but you can't.
This was the point that I actually agreed with Stevie on, that murder happening on camera is definitely more impactful and more traumatic to anybody watching it. So the public does view that event much differently than somebody dying off camera. And Abba's point was death is death. If you die, you die. Whether people see it on camera or not, it has the same impact. I definitely disagree with Abba. I hate the comparison of Charlie Kirk and George Floyd, but George Floyd was somebody that died on camera, start to finish. The same as Charlie Kirk. So you can see how those deaths would impact people differently. So I think Stevie was right in that aspect of this conversation.
So dying on camera makes a murder worse?
No, not the murder worse, but the effect that has on the people is worse because everybody can see it.
Sure.
It's different than watching a news report and you hear about somebody that had something happen to them that was grotesque as opposed to actually seeing it, because this people are going through trauma with this right now.
That's the effect that it has on you as an individual. But yeah, the tragedy is the same. The tragedy.
I disagree with you on that.
Okay, well, we're definitely going to disagree. But that doesn't mean that we can't contextualize it with those other murders. What's really important is that he was killed for political reasons. That's the focus. That's not just a little bit. That's 99% of the focus. None of the coverage that we've been seeing lately is because, like, can you believe that people die on camera? Nobody's talking about it.
But that's not my argument. I'm not saying that it's only important because it happened on camera. I'm saying it's worse than everything else that's happened thus far because it happened the way that it did.
Okay, yeah, I think we'll agree to disagree. I don't think someone dying on camera makes it worse. I think a tragedy, death is death, murder is murder.
Again, I didn't agree with Abba on that point. I think somebody dying on camera does make it more impactful and a bit sadder. But I also disagree with Stevie that we have to talk about Charlie Kirk's death in a vacuum like he's the only person that ever died on camera. And I don't want to keep making a parallel between Charlie Kirk and George Floyd, but George Floyd died on camera, was laughed at, clowned, and they're still making fun of and lying about George Floyd's death till this day. Charlie Kirk was killed on camera, and the right or conservatives were mad about the reaction that his death got from people that didn't agree with his stances. But those were the same people that were making fun of George Floyd. So you can't talk about this stuff in a vacuum.
For someone to say that this assassination happening publicly for the entire world to see does not make this incident more tragic, and it's no different than any other murder, is asinine. Of course, it's bad because he died from political violence, but it's much worse that the entire world saw this man get clipped the way that he did.
But he didn't have this same energy for George Floyd's death. And I could say Trayvon, but Trayvon's death wasn't caught on camera. So we just have to keep going back to George Floyd. And when the response to George Floyd's death from the right or conservatives was people making fun of George Floyd or lying about his death, he acted like he didn't see any of that online.
I was on social media enough to see a couple days after Trayvon Martin was dead, motherfuckers had a trend that went viral to say that it's called Trayvoning. They would say there and lay in the exact same position as how he was killed. They did the same thing with George Floyd. Remember after he died, a motherfucker sat on the floor while someone had their neck and they would take these pictures. Look it up. I didn't even make it up. You can find these things. There's so many examples of people,
Selective outrage.
people dying because they didn't like them and they didn't like what they stood for.
So again, you can't act like this happened in a vacuum or other people weren't aware of the type of responses that these deaths get.
Because we've been desensitized to things to shit on what happened to Charlie Kirk the way that he did and say it's no different than anything else, and him being assassinated publicly like that doesn't make anything worse.
You can't have all of this energy and sympathy for one person that died on camera and was made fun of, but not have it for the other person that died on camera and was made fun of and still is till this day.
But then to actually see it, reading the amount of abortions that take place in America, but to actually see an abortion take place, the visual provided, bro, it makes the game entirely different, dog.
So you can use that same parallel for hungry kids. It's absolutely different reading about 14, 15 million hungry kids and not feeling anything, but actually seeing a hungry kid be hungry at dinner time, go to sleep hungry, wake up hungry, go to school hungry, that would impact you much differently, Stevie, than it does just reading about it.
Honestly, it made me think about, what things Abba has experienced, personally to address it that way. I mean, like, you have to be desensitized. You have to have dehumanized people to a certain point.
He wants empathy on one topic, but not the other topic. And I feel like that's really messed up and manipulative.
But yeah, this was whack. This was whack. All right, got some more time. I'm gonna try to get through the rest of this.
The whole topic of good versus evil. There's a portion of it that's really interesting.
The cancer needs to be cut out, bro. Ain't no talking to them. And it needs to be. Get these motherfuckers out of here. It is war because ain't no talking to them. Ain't nothing you say to them. They need to be deterred.
He's saying all of this just about anybody that celebrated Charlie Kirk's death or had something negative to say about Charlie Kirk after he passed. So he wants to call a certain side demonic or evil and say they need to be dealt with, they need to lose their jobs, they need to be beheaded, etc., but not the other side who's done the exact same thing. That's hypocritical.
They need to be controlled. They need to be fucking exiled, decapitated, whatever your cup of tea is, bro.
That's what he said in the original.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to be super good faith and think he was being hyperbolic and emotional at the time, and he didn't mean to say that we shouldn't take off the heads of people who said this stuff.
I told him what I meant. I said I was just saying things to make everyone that felt what I was saying feel heard. But whatever, bro, whatever. This is some
Some sensitive shit.
I think Stevie is the one that seems a bit sensitive, depressed, and emotional about Abba's reaction video to their debate, not the other way around.
Labeling someone evil, I think, is a way for us to look at something and then simplify it. But the reality is that things are complex. People are complex, and the reason why they get to that place is very difficult.
Labeling somebody evil dehumanizes them because you view them as evil or inhumane. And I think that's just a bad word, a bad description of human beings just being human.
I should also be accountable in the way that I engage in discourse, because plenty of times where I have probably written people off out of frustration because you just see a lot of shit every day. We all have those feelings. The important part is that when we're talked back from that ledge, we don't stay there. Because the moment you start looking at people and looking at large swaths of people and saying they need to lose their freedoms, but it doesn't mean that these people should lose their freedoms. Because then we go into a place now where you are now criminalizing things that aren't criminal. They might be abhorrent. They might be views you don't agree with, but part of living in a free society means that the views that you have, you're allowed to hold them and still be free.
Abba is disingenuous as shit, bro. Were we having the same conversation, bro? My whole point in that conversation was there's no talking to them. That's all I said.
No, he said there's no talking to them. They need to be dealt with. Whatever happens to them happens to them. And you can view that as inciting violence against people or wishing bad on them, whatever the case.
You know what I mean? And he's trying to take this moral high ground saying that, you know, I'm saying that people should not be allowed to say what they say. The fact that he's taking things entirely out of context, trying to, I mean, if you want to cherry pick and different points of the conversation. So
I hate that defense that everything is either cherry picked or taken out of context. Like, I watched that whole debate. I don't think what Abba said or what he presented and reacted to was taken out of context. Stevie's stance was, fuck them people that reacted negative to Charlie Kirk's death. They're demons. The demons were demoning. They're evil. They need to be dealt with. They need to be beheaded. They need to lose their He said all of those things. And even when they were talking towards the end of the debate, Stevie's stance really didn't change.
You picking and choosing what you want to focus on and taking all the context out of it, bro. I label all these motherfuckers as evil, and there's nothing you can do with these evil motherfuckers. All this kumbaya shit, it's not reality, dog. That's why wars take place.
But again, you're calling people demonic that don't agree with somebody that had negative stances toward their race or culture.
Taking me out of context is diabolical.
You might feel justified, you might feel righteous, but the moment you just say, everybody who did this is just evil, then what that happens is that going after these people becomes justice. If you hurt them, it's not bad because it's justice. You smited evil.
All right. I told the fool in the middle of the conversation, dog, you trying to put words on me. Say you being emotional. You thinking with your whatever. Nah, dog. I said it's logical for me to cut these people off. It would be a waste of time communicating with these people. There's nothing I can categorize, label it as outside of fucking evil. It's out here celebrating a man's death that way.
But that's my point. I get how you feel. I get the whole, like the sensation of like, this world is a dark place and like we can't even negotiate.
I'm not even gonna say the world's a dark place. I'm just saying that part of the world.
You said you got no hope.
I'm saying there's no hope for these motherfuckers. You may give them hope. I'm not. They could burn.
So this is the clip that he put up defending himself, and he said it in the clip, they can burn. I don't know how that's not viewed as inciting violence or wishing death on people or whatever the case.
Why would I waste my time talking to someone that there's no point in talking to?
I thought this would have been a really good chance for Stevie to look at the debate, maybe see where he could have done things differently or expressed things differently, or where he was even wrong in some of his stances to kind of correct or redirect it. Instead, what he did was just nitpick things that he thought he was right on or taken out of context with and continue to argue those points. So it really wasn't any progress made. And not like Stevie had to change his stance, but at least it would have been good if he expressed how something that he said could be perceived as negative or evil or cold or whatever. But instead, he just spent this whole video basically re-debating his points, which I think were flawed for the most part in the first place. But thanks for watching. Y'all let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Also, make sure you check out the next video, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram for behind the scenes and life stuff, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.